Esophoria means what I've already told you. Esophoria means uncrossed. Uncrossed diplopia. Uncrossed diplopia is there. So right eye image is formed on the right side and the left eye image is formed on the left side like this. But in exophoria it is crossed. So for the right eye image is formed on this side and for the left eye image is formed on this side. So this is the crossed thing. Similarly for the vertical deviations also, this is the ortho because this rod we have placed vertically, so it means this is a vertical deviation. So if the eye is orthophoric, the image will be like this. So if there is hypophoria, that is eye is deviated downwards, so the image will be formed upwards. And hyperphoria, if the eye is deviated upwards, then the image will be formed downwards for this eye. Now the other one is Maddox wing test. So there are two slits present in the Maddox wing. Here you can see the diagram. There are two slits present, and the right eye sees a vertical white arrow and the horizontal red arrow like this. This horizontal vertical arrow, then this horizontal arrow is seen by the right eye through this slit, and the left eye will see this vertical line and horizontal line through this slit. So the patient is asked to tell the number on the horizontal line which the vertical white arrow is pointing. So the patient will see, to understand it better, I'll remove this. So now the patient is asked that this white arrow is pointing towards which number on the horizontal line, and the red arrow is pointing towards which number on the vertical line. If the person is having no squint, then the person will tell it correctly, and if there is any squint, then the person will not be able to tell the correct number. And the amount of deviation will be tested by the distance between the correct and the pair number which the patient has told. Fine. For a cyclophoria, the movable red arrow is adjusted to appear parallel to the horizontal scale and is measured in degrees. For example, if the patient is having cyclophoria, so the patient is seeing this Maddox rod something like this. So the patient will move this arrow. So the patient will move this red arrow, so that both this horizontal line and the vertical and this red arrow will come to lie on the same, they come to lie parallel. So the amount of red arrow which is moved will tell about the deviation in cyclophoria. Now near point of accommodation and near point of convergence. Now how this test is performed, it will it will tell us whether the patient is having good accommodation or whether the patient is having good convergence abilities. So how the test is done in this, here is this scale present. Fine. Now the examiner has hold one object in his hand, and now the examiner will start moving this object towards the patient. Now for the near point of accommodation, the patient will have to tell the point when the patient will start experiencing blurring of the image. So if the point now this object will moving toward the patient like this, and for example the patient at this point of time, at this point the patient start experiencing blurring of this object. So this is the near point of accommodation. So this is the near point of accommodation. And for the near point of convergence, if we'll move of the object in this direction, for example at this point the patient start experiencing double object, so this will tell about the near point of convergence. So for near point of convergence, normally it is around 70 mm, and for near point of accommodation it varies with age. So this you can remember by this mnemonic, that is ABCD: accommodation, blurring, convergence, diplopia. Fine. Now the examination of a case of comitant squint. So the many of the tests I have already told you in examination for the case of latent squint, but there are some tests which are exclusively done in the comitant squint. I will be discussing that only in this section. So first of all, inspection I have already told you. The second one is the ocular movements. So you have to check the ocular movements in every direction, in primary gaze, in secondary gaze, and in the tertiary gazes, and you have to check for the pupillary reactions also, because to rule out any history of trauma or any history of like in the third nerve or fourth nerve, in the third nerve pupil may be affected. So for that, to rule out that, you have to check for the pupillary reactions, and in the fundus examination also you have to do to rule out any pathology in the fundus. Vision and refractive error I have already explained you. Cover test I have already explained, cover, uncover, and alternate cover test. Now what is the alternate cover test? I have already told you in the comitant squint the deviation, primary and secondary deviations are equal. So it doesn't matter you measure the deviation by fixing any of the eyes, the deviation will remain same. But it is not so in the paralytic squint, because the primary and secondary deviation are different. So you have to test each eye separately, and this is known as the alternate cover test. I have already reveals whether a squint is unilateral or alternate, and also differentiate between the comitant and incompetent squint, because if the deviation will be different for both the eyes, then it is incompetent squint. Now the estimation of the angle of deviation. For this we will be doing the Hirschberg corneal reflex test. What we are exactly doing in this test, we will ask the patient to fixate an object like a torch which is held at a distance of 33 centimeter from the patient. Now, and we have to locate the location. Now we have to locate the corneal reflex on the patient's eye. This is a Hirschberg's test. Now this is normal because the corneal reflex is perfectly in the center. Now for the left esotropia, this reflex has moved outwards. This is the center. Now the reflex has moved outwards. Why it has moved outwards? Because, for example, this is the eye. This is the reflex in the center. Now if the eye has moved towards this direction in the esotropia like this, so the reflex will fall here, and if the eye has moved towards this side, for example like this, so the reflex will fall somewhere here. So for the esotropias, reflex will be falling on the lateral side of the cornea, and for the exotropias reflex will be falling on the medial side of the cornea. So here for the hypertropia, because the eye has moved up, like in this diagram you can see the eye has moved up, so the reflex will appear to be on the lower side. The pseudoesotropia, reflexes are in the center like this. So here you can see this in this eye, the reflex is at the pupillary border. Here you can see the reflex is at the pupillary border. In this also the reflex is at the pupillary border, but in this the reflex is at the limbus, although this is very faintly seen in this diagram, but here you can see the reflex is here. You can appreciate that reflex is here at the limbus here. So now these are the various location of the reflex on the cornea. For example, if the reflex is in the center, then there is no deviation, 0. If it is at the pupillary border, then it is 15-degree deviation, and if it is at the limbus, then it is 45-degree, and if it is between the limbus and the pupillary border, then it is 30-degree. So here we can roughly estimate the amount of deviation present. Fine. Now the prism and the prism cover test I have already told you. Now the Krimsky test. Now I have already told you one prerequisite for the cover uncover test. The patient should be able to fixate the distant object. If the patient is not able to fixate the distant object, we cannot do cover or uncover test. So in these cases we will be performing the Krimsky test. So what we are doing in the Krimsky test? So in this the patient is asked to fixate on a point light which is kept at near to the patient, and the prism of increasing powers are placed in front of the normal fixating eye. So for example, this is the normal eye, this is the squinting eye. So what we are doing is we have placed, we'll start placing the prism. This is a prism, prism bar on which there are prism of various powers. So we'll move the prism in this direction like this. So after moving this, we'll from with one hand we'll shine the torch. Now we'll see that this eye will automatically come in this direction, because if we are placing prisms in front of the normal eye, because I've already told you about the visual axis, so the visual axis between the axis between the two eyes will remain constant. So this eye will start moving towards this side, because we are placing high power prisms in front of the normal eye, and accordingly this eye will move towards this direction. So the reflex will and if we'll shine the reflex on this eye, slowly and slowly the reflex will automatically fall in the center. Now we have to note that power of the prism on which the corneal reflex is centered on the squinting eye. So we'll place in front of the normal eye, that is prisms of increasing powers, and till the corneal light reflex is centered in the squinting eye. Now for tests for the grade of binocularity and the sensory functions. First one is a Worth 4-dot test. In this we are using the red green goggles. Mnemonic for this is red, right, R for right, R for red, and L for the green glasses, left eye green glasses, like here you can see in this diagram. So here we'll show one box to the patient like this. So if the patient is having a normal, the patient is having no squint, the patient is perfectly normal. So the patient will see all the four dots in the absence of any manifest squint, like in this diagram. Now if the patient is having any abnormal retinal correspondence, the patient will see image like this. And if there is left suppression, the patient is not able to see through the left eye, then this will be the image perceived by the patient. And if there is left suppression, there is right suppression, the image will be perceived like this. And if there is diplopia, patient will see 5 images like this. And if there is alternating suppression, the patient will see 3 green lights or 2 red lights alternately, like sometimes this light or sometimes this light, if in case of alternating suppression. Now the test of fixation. In this test of fixation, it is tested with the help of a visuoscope. So the patient is asked to cover one eye and fix the star with the one eye. Now the fixation may be centric, eccentric, parafoveal, macular or paramacular, depending upon the pathology in the patient. Now next is the after image test. In the after image test, the right eye is stimulated with the vertical line and the left eye is stimulated with the horizontal line like this. This is for the right eye, this is for the left eye. Now the patient is asked to draw the position of the after images. This test is mainly done in Synaptophore. Synaptophore is a machine on which various tests are done, like this after image test or test of binocularity, or there are many orthoptic exercises which can be done with the help of Synaptophore, and deviations also we can measure with Synaptophore. So at this level you should only be remembering only this much about Synaptophore, because Synaptophore itself is a very vast topic. So at this point of time you must remember that after image test is performed in the Synaptophore. So after image testing, in this is the result of after image testing. So this is the normal, and if there is abnormal retinal corresponding, so in this here you can see the right eye image has come to this side, and the left eye image has come here. So this is crossed, because the right eye image has come to this side and left eye image has come to this side. So this is the cross. So this is exotropia. So if the after image is like this, it means the patient is having exotropia. And if the image is like this, so that it means the patient is having esotropia, because in this there is uncrossed uncrossed squint. So right eye image is on the right side and left is on the left. Fine. Now next is sensory function with synaptophore. As I've already told you, this synaptophore is an instrument in which various tests can be done. So this is itself is a very vast topic. Now the last one is the neutral density filters. In this, if there is functional amblyopia, if we'll check the vision with neutral density filters, the vision improves with the neutral density filters, then this is a functional amblyopia. And if vision does not improve with the neutral density filter, then this is known, then that is organic amblyopia. So that is all about the examination of squint. So for the comitant squint and for the paralytic squint, you can watch my subsequent videos. Hope you have benefited from this discussion. So for any doubt, you can post in the comment section below. I'll be happy to help you. So thank you friends. That is all. Stay safe and stay healthy.